I've been seeing a lot of clips circulate from a recent Timcast IRL live stream, and I wanted to give some commentary on a few segments in that particular live stream because I have a lot to say. And, before we get into it, I'm not going to react to the entire live stream because it's like over 2 hours long, and I don't got time for that. For those of you that remember, about 2 years ago, I reacted to a small segment of a clip, or it was like an interview from a guy named Yuri Bezmenov. And Yuri was an ex-KGB agent, and he was basically going over all of the goals that communists were going to try to achieve in order to take over America. And this was back in like the 1980s, I believe he had this interview. And one portion of that conversation that always sticks out to me is when he gets to the part about demoralization. And what Yuri said in this interview was that once someone has been demoralized, the facts don't matter to them. You can literally take them and bring them to concentration camps and show them where people were slaughtered, and they still wouldn't believe it. The facts don't matter. The truth doesn't matter. They only believe what they've been conditioned to believe, and that's the end of the story. And so there's a lot of demoralization going on in this live stream that I'm going to show you some clips of. But you know what? Let's watch some of these clips so you can see exactly what I'm talking about.
So if you were saying that in Colorado, women have the ability at 9 months to have an abortion for any reason, they could just decide that
Elective,
yeah. Okay, I think they should have the right to do that, but the stats show that they're not doing that. But they should have a legal right to do that. Yes, it's their body, it's their choice, of course.
So this is what I disagree on. I think if the baby needs to be removed
By the way, that's false. They are definitely doing that.
From the woman, there's no reason to kill it. You know what I mean? Like you could just C-section and then put it up for adoption.
But I'm telling you that doesn't happen.
But it does. But hold on.
Like you might be able to bring up anecdotes, but the stats don't say that.
But hold on. Like, why allow it to happen? I just don't understand.
Right.
Are you arguing? Wait, hold on. Are you arguing you oppose it? And you think it's morally wrong, but you think it should be legal?
I think that women should have the right to decide what they do and have bodily autonomy over their own bodies.
We're not talking about her body. We're talking about...
It is her body. We're talking about at 9 months, even if it's still inside her, it's still her body. Even if it's a viable baby,
it's still her body. We're talking about the removal of the baby, yes?
The forceful removal of the baby, or...
Forceful.
So she chooses to have that.
The woman says the baby must be removed from my body. Why kill the baby if they're removing it?
I don't think they should do that. I would. If they ask me, Lance, should I do this? I would say no, but she should have a right. Yes, of course. It's her body.
I don't know about the laws in particular as it regards to Colorado, but in a lot of states, yes, that is something that is happening where babies are literally being killed at 9 months. All right. So it is happening. So, all right, we've already checked off one box where we're showing facts to someone and they don't care. Doesn't matter. But now let's unpack a little bit of what he just said. I love how Tim challenged this guy and asked him, so do you agree with this idea that if a woman doesn't want a baby for whatever reason at 9 months, we can just kill the baby? Is that what you're saying? And he responded with, I don't agree with it, but it's still her right. Do you recognize the slippery slope of that? I don't agree with slavery, but it's your right to own slaves. I don't agree with murdering your neighbor, but again, it's your right to murder your neighbor. Where do you think this guy is getting his objective morality from? Because this is a moral argument. You think it is her right to murder her baby, says who? If it's your standard of morality, then sir, that's just an opinion. And let's take it a step further. It seems that this man doesn't think abortion is the equivalent to murder. Why? Based on whose standards? The science standard? Is that what we're going by? We cannot get our morality from science. We need a moral arbiter to define that morality.
The woman is pregnant. The baby is viable and capable of surviving on its own.
Sure.
And she says, before it breaches oxygen, kill it. Do you think that should be allowed?
This is, again, the baby guillotines. This is why I brought that up. But what a weird scenario. This doesn't happen. This is not the real world.
But it does. And if the argument is that it doesn't happen enough for you to care, that's fine. You're allowed to believe that.
Sure.
Right there. Exactly. I hate when people bring up this. That's an anecdote. That's anecdotal evidence, you know? And I love how Tim called this out. If it's not happening enough to the point where you actually give a crap about this situation, then just say that. But if it happens once is enough. It's so crazy to me because people will go and protest and burn buildings down for something that happened one time as opposed to millions upon millions of babies that are aborted And it's like, oh, that's anecdotal. What?
I don't understand is it seems like your position is a rather shocked position where you recognize there is something inherently wrong with taking the life of a baby that could survive on its own, but you're also taking the tribal position of women should be allowed to do it anyway.
No. If you were to ask me, Tim, hey, Lance, do you think it's a good idea if this woman who's 9 months pregnant, suddenly she got bored with the pregnancy, she doesn't want to have it anymore, but the baby's viable? Do you think that's a good thing to do? I would be like, no, of course not.
Then why should it be allowed?
Because it's still her right. It's still her body.
But
that doesn't make any sense. My goodness. He's already saying, I don't think this is right, but still, I think it's their right to do so. Who are you trying to please here? It seems like you're trying to please someone. Either you think it's right or you think it's wrong.
Autonomy doesn't stop at my morality. Tim, it's not my choice. Right? It's not my, yes, but that's not my choice.
Why kill it? Why kill it?
That's her choice, not mine.
Why kill the baby?
Ask her. Ask her.
Okay, so my point is simply this. You don't need to be shocked by it. You are allowed to have that moral position. I think most people in America would prescribe that to be, would ascribe evil to that.
Okay, yeah.
That's
all right.
You can ascribe evil to whatever you want. That's up to you. That's your choice.
The idea that you would say.
Did you hear what he just said? So I don't know Tim's I don't know how he feels towards God. I don't know if he's thought about it, if he's agnostic. I don't know his position on that. But listen to what he just said. He said a lot of people would prescribe your point as being evil. And then this guy said, you can say anything is evil. Let me go back. Let me just make sure that's what he actually said, because this is a part of the problem. So let me go back.
Would prescribe that to be would ascribe evil to that.
Sure,
but that's
the
idea.
You can ascribe evil to whatever you want. That's up to you. That's your choice.
So this guy says that you can call anything evil, which means if we're using the same logic, you can call anything good. And clearly, I'm witnessing a conversation with people debating morality. They may not be talking about morality outright, but this is what this conversation boils down to. This is a consequence of, again, allowing other people to define the standards for morality. You're just going with the flow and changing your opinions based on other people, based on trends, based on social consensus, the law, the science, the scientists that lie. You know, the morality is just, it's debatable. No, either it's right or it's wrong. Woe to those who call evil good and call good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness, who put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. Your morality is backwards because you're not anchored by anything.
You can give the baby up for adoption. You can drop the baby off on the doorstep of a post office.
I agree with you. I'm not disputing
So why
that.
legalize? Even if it's one, why legalize? You see, this is the craziest thing.
Because her autonomy should not be cut off based on your morality, because you don't think that idea is good.
Her autonomy should not be cut off based on your morality. Did you get that? He just acknowledged that he's following a different moral standard than Tim. And this is the problem with atheism, my friends. This is the problem. The simple fact that there is a disagreement in this conversation is the point.
I don't think women on the 9th month get abortions with viable living children and then be like, I don't want to kill it. I don't think that happens.
I mean, you don't have to think it happens, but statistically it does, because your entire argument is this only happens for reasons of the health of the mother or the health of the unborn child.
I said
so you believe
I said the statistics show that at the 9th month, if a woman is going to have an abortion, it's typically because it's a medical complication that could either endanger her or the child's life.
And what I'm saying is there are doctors who will justify that by saying the medical complication is she is depressed. That is literally one of the reasons given in surveys of women. And another reason that is given is that I know if man was going to be.
Really quick, really quick. Seamus is Catholic. His stance on abortion is a lot more clear than a lot of these other people speaking.
Conservatives are pro-life outright. Seamus would argue abortion in any capacity should be banned entirely.
Yep.
I'm in the traditional Democrat position.
So, like I said earlier, Seamus, who believes in God, is anchored by the morality established by God, whereas Tim, who doesn't believe in God, at least to my knowledge, seems to think that abortion, it depends when it is in rare circumstances. So it's not really grounded. That morality isn't really grounded in objective truth. It's grounded in opinions of other people.
So you said I'm pro-abortion. What I'm against is forced birth. And I don't think the state should be forcing women to give birth against their will.
Excuse me. I didn't mean to laugh. Sir, Forced birth? What do you mean that is literally the function of a woman who's pregnant. And if she's pregnant, that baby's coming out of her regardless. So, okay, forced birth. All right. So on the one hand, you think a woman doing something natural with her body is forcing her. But on the other hand, you think going in with tools to dismember a child is not forceful removal. What are you talking about, man? Like, what is going on?
You just said when she is at 8 or 9 months. Okay, so she's at 8 or 9.
I said viable.
Okay, so it's viable. The baby's viable. She should have to give birth to it in some capacity. C-section, whatever.
Define birth, and I can answer your question.
Birth, the removal of a child into the world from a mother's womb.
So how do they do that?
The woman pushes the baby out.
So then what would you call an abortion at 8 months? Is the woman pushing the baby out?
No, it's most likely a medical procedure done by a doctor.
And what is that medical procedure?
An abortion.
Like, but what is that?
He doesn't know.
An abortion?
Yes.
He doesn't know. There's a reason. There's a reason for that. There's a reason that he's asking this question. And again, I don't agree abortion is good in any circumstance. So I disagree with Tim on that. But I like how he is probing with this particular question, because if you know your stuff, you would understand how abortions are actually done.
How is it done?
Yes.
I'm not entirely sure how it's done in 8 months. I know earlier on it's usually done with a series of tools. I don't know how it's done in 8 or 9 months.
Okay, so your moral argument is forced birth. I'm trying to understand what your position is. If you don't know how an abortion is done, then are you in favor of forced birth?
Am I in favor of forced? No, I'm against forced birth.
But you think that women should have to expel the baby, right?
It's completely fine for me not to know the medical procedure of how abortion is.
Okay, so let me stop right here because this is very chaotic. So if you don't understand what Tim is trying to do, he's basically trying to get to the root of why this man thinks it is morally okay, or apparently he thinks it's wrong, but he thinks that a woman should still have the right to do it, which hurts my head. It makes no sense. But he's trying to get to the root of his argument. So if this guy is saying that birth equals a C-section or coming out through the vaginal canal, if that's what birth is, then how is that any different from opening up with a C-section or dismembering the child using tools through the vaginal canal? Because either way, that baby is coming out through the stomach or through the vagina. So if the position is that a woman just doesn't want the baby, then what is the reason for killing the baby as opposed to allowing the baby to naturally come out? Because it's going to come out regardless. And at that point, if the woman doesn't want the baby, we have a lot of people that would take those babies. Okay. So what is the argument here? I'm not understanding it. And the fact that he is not educated on what abortion procedures entail goes to show you that this is, again, the result of demoralization. The facts don't matter. And actually, the facts are so irrelevant that one doesn't find it necessary to even inform themselves on what the truth is. They're just sort of regurgitating this script. Yeah, I don't know what goes into an abortion procedure, but I think it's a woman's right. Like, hello?
I got a compromise for you. We'll tell the mother we killed it, but we'll sneak it off and give it to someone else. Does that work for you?
No, because I still think she should have autonomy. She should have the right to do it if she wants to. Of course.
She should kill.
Pray for this man. Pray for this man. Wow. 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 Okay. So we've gotten more to the root here. The argument isn't whether or not a woman should be forced to give birth. The argument is you want that baby dead. That's the argument. Because as you just said, we just tell her the baby's dead, but actually sneak it away and take it somewhere safe. Nope. It's still her choice. What?
Kill the baby after she's already born?
I don't want her to kill a baby. I want her to have.
Keep saying it?
Because I want her to have the ability to choose. That's different, and that is a fundamental part of this.
The baby's out of her body, right?
Forcibly. In your scenario.
No. Let's say 24 weeks. The woman goes to the doctor and says, I want this baby out of me. And
what if she says, I don't want to have this baby?
I don't want to have this baby. Okay. And the doctor says, I will remove it.
Okay.
Oh, the baby's alive. What do we do?
So you forced her to give birth?
No. She said, doctor, I'd like an abortion. He says, you got it. Step right up.
He's lying to her.
No. He does the abortion and it fails. And
an abortion is terminating a pregnancy. So there's no such thing as a trick abortion. You can't trick.
But there is such thing as failed abortions. Do you get that? And in fact, what I really find interesting about these cases is as a lot of them go on to become pro-life advocates. Again, not very informed when it comes to the whole abortion procedure, because if he was, he would recognize that that is something that happens a lot.
They're called failed abortions.
Failed abortions,
Yes.
where doctors like trick
right.
women into
No,
taking the
no,
baby.
No.
So when they
There have been a couple of different born alive acts in different years, but what they basically say is that if the abortion fails, it is not legal to kill the child.
wasn't that Republicans were trying to pass
The
a law?
Republicans were trying to pass that. That was one of the only things Obama voted on in the Senate. He voted against it.
Obama voted against it. But you would be in favor of that.
In favor of what?
The Born Alive Act.
I'm not completely familiar with it, so I have to
If
read
an
about it
infant is
first.
born alive after an attempted abortion, it has the same protection of law and degree as a newborn.
Yeah, I would be okay with that, because at that point it's a human. If you're killing a person that is alive outside of a womb, then that's murder, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so per this man's logic, if at 9 months a woman wanted to abort her baby and the abortion executioner said, okay, I'm going to do it, but it fails and that baby actually survives, to him, it would be wrong to kill that baby because it survived. Again, at 9 months, a failed abortion, it's wrong to kill that baby after an abortion failed, since it's out of the woman. But as long as it's in the woman at 9 months, it would be okay to kill that baby. Woo! Okay. All right, that's what we're going with.
Yeah, I agree.
Can I ask you, this is not a gotcha.
We agree on that. That's great.
I want to ask in good faith. So
Yeah, of course.
you believe that the moment after the child is outside of the birth canal,
Sure.
that they are now endowed with human rights.
Yes.
However, when they're inside of the mother,
Seamus.
literally anything you do to them is acceptable because they're inside of the mother.
I just said this. I haven't watched this before, by the way. So really quickly, I want to read you something. So this is 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 5, and it reads, "We destroy arguments and every lofty opinion raised against the knowledge of God and take every thought captive to obey Christ." So humor me for a little bit in case you don't believe in God, but this sort of ties into my point of why Seamus and I are in alignment on most of these issues. And it's because God is truth, and God commands us to obey him as opposed to obeying people. So if he says that murder is wrong, then we are to obey him and not subscribe to the belief that killing a baby at 9 months is okay or it's healthcare. Forget what the world says. Christ is our number one priority.
Oh, I don't think anything's acceptable, but I think the mother should still have the choice, ultimate authority over what happens to her body.
But there's a child inside her body.
Hold on.
Not
What
her.
about meth?
Like, should she be allowed to do meth?
Yeah.
I think if someone is doing meth while they're pregnant, that it is completely acceptable for something like, I don't know what the name of the service is in the United States.
Child
For-
services?
I guess
Child and child
ECFS
services?
would be.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's her body, though.
Yeah, it's her body.
If she wants to do meth, what's the big deal?
The big deal is that she's intentionally trying to kill a child.
Hold on there.
This guy isn't even realizing that he just demolished his previous arguments. All right, I think that's enough on the abortion conversation. So I want to move along to get to where they start talking about transgenderism.
Why is it that you push propaganda when it comes to trans people?
Like what?
That is so far beyond the pale.
Like what?
Okay, let's start with gender affirming care.
Mhm.
Gender affirming care, you're very, very against. I've heard you call it
What is
mutilation. The mutilation.
I don't call it mutilation. I've never said that.
That's what you say on your show.
I do.
No,
I
I
don't.
don't.
know if he does. I call
I
it mutilating
don't.
children.
I call it child sex change.
When you were talking about Dwayne Wade moving his family, you
Someone in the crowd said, "Why are you mutilating your son?" That was a quote from someone else. I didn't say that. I
then-
call it.
but then you made
and
it-
I've explicitly said I don't take the right agitator approach of calling it mutilation because that's not effective in having a conversation. I will plainly call it a child sex change as what it is. I'm not.
Okay, again, I loved him, disagree with him on this stance. And as you can see, if you notice the pattern, I agree with Seamus. I do think that gender affirming care is mutilation. I think that you are mutilating healthy men and women, boys and girls, and doing something to their body that wasn't necessary in the first place. I think using precise language is better than playing around with terminology that essentially is you're only doing it to appease the feelings of people who have already concluded that it is morally okay to affirm someone who believes that they're the opposite sex. Like that there's something wrong with that position as it is. I say the same thing when it comes to abortion. I think using precise language and calling it murder, although it's jarring to a lot of people, it's precise because you are murdering innocent life. Actually, I've recently upgraded and I started calling it child sacrifice because you are sacrificing a child to do blank. Whatever the reason is, you're sacrificing a baby. So again, I think using precise language is important because there is nothing about gender affirming care or calling it a child sex change that argues it isn't mutilation. So for those who are watching this on Rumble and on Locals, I'm going to give you a timer because I'm going to show you some photos really quickly and it's going to be really disturbing. So if you're not interested in seeing this, skip ahead to this timestamp so you don't have to watch what I'm going to display. But if you are watching this video on YouTube, I'm going to have this blurred because YouTube doesn't want me to show you what gender affirming care actually looks like. Does this look caring to you? Does this look like this person is living their true self now? This photo right here, I found this one very interesting because you can see all these cut marks on this person's body, and you usually find these scars among people who cut themselves when they have suicidal ideation. So we're not addressing the mental or spiritual depravity, and instead concluding that if you give them gender affirming care, now all of their problems are going to go away. A grown adult can do whatever they want, but I am of the position that I don't think this type of surgery or this procedure should have been legalized for anyone in the first place. There are some things in this world that we ought to not do, and one of those things is playing God.
If someone is trans and they're young, and until they're about 10 years old before they go through puberty, gender affirming care would be in the form of you using different pronouns, preferred pronouns, and allowing them to dress differently.
Yeah, I don't care about that.
Do you have a problem with that? Does anyone here?
Yes, I do.
Yes, I do.
Okay, so both of you don't.
Right.
See, again, you notice the pattern. Aside from surgery and hormones, if a boy thinks he's a girl, we just call that boy a girl. Absolutely not. But again, Seamus and I are both grounded by a moral arbiter of the universe, whereas these other individuals, to my knowledge, don't believe in God. So they're basing their moral standards on opinion. There's no growth in affirming a lie and affirming a delusion just for the sake of saving someone's feelings. You can get your gender changed on your license. If a man commits a crime but says female on his license, where do you think he's gonna go? He's gonna go into a woman's prison. How did we get there? It started with this narrative that we have to affirm the lie that you can just switch your gender, all because you don't want to hurt someone's feelings. You can't compromise on something that's against God. And if you don't agree with God or you don't believe in God, that's fine. Call it woke if you want to. In any case, there is no compromising with woke. You either have women's rights or you don't.
Studies show 10 follow-up studies found resistance of 61 to 98%.
Yeah. Can you click on the Wikipedia article?
What annoys me about this conversation is we're even having the conversation. We could argue that people throughout history have had issues dealing with their identity and they've always been gender dysphoric throughout history. Okay, fine. We can have that argument. Were we injecting people with hormones and puberty blockers 500 years ago? Were we doing that? No. So what was actually the alternative? The alternative was learning to accept yourself. There was no compromise with it. There are some things that we ought to not do. And it's crazy to me that people think they can play God with this trans stuff and think that there's not going to be some serious ramifications down the long run, both for the individual and for society as a whole. There's another quote that I want to read, or verse, I should say. And this was in Romans chapter 1, verse 28, and it reads, "Furthermore, just as they did not think it was worthwhile to retain the knowledge of God, so God gave them over to a depraved mind so that they do what ought not to be done." If someone doesn't believe in God, eventually they're going to make something else their God. For a lot of people, it's the science. The science is their God. Yeah, the same science that can't give a clear answer as to what a woman is. Sometimes people think they can be their own God. If I just take these hormones and I do this surgery, I can become my true self. It's sad, man. It's so sad that we're even having this conversation.
You only go on puberty blockers for a short amount of time before you can be put onto HRT. They do not want to keep them on puberty blockers, and that way you avoid a lot of the potential negative side effects.
We had Helena Kirshner on the show, who walked into a Planned Parenthood and within minutes was given the maximum dose of testosterone.
Anecdote.
Absolutely.
Lived experience.
So when
Yo. Anecdote. One time is enough. One time is enough. And that's not an anecdote, by the way. That is, oh my goodness.
You want to know what I think? I think there is a transgenocide.
Okay.
And I think it's you.
Okay.
Because you're sterilizing a lot of these people.
How so?
I mean, they're literally sterilizing them. The surgery to remove the gonads, hysterectomies, and cross-sex hormones and puberty blockers have a high rate of sterilization. I mean, first of all, removal of...
Yeah. When they say this is a trans genocide, the irony about that statement is that people who support trans affirming care are advocating for a genocide. And it's because you're literally sterilizing them. You're literally cutting off their peepees, or you're sewing up their vaginas, and you're giving them drugs that's going to make them sterile. Eventually, if you let that play out for a few years, you're going to have a decrease in population. If I could maybe even be a little bit more precise with my language, maybe I could say this is voluntary eugenics. Yeah, voluntary eugenics.
The gonads in the uterus is an absolute sterilization, and then puberty blockers have a very high rate, and cross-sex hormones have an extremely high rate of sterilizing the individual. So these people can no longer reproduce. That's genocide.
Is this the joke you're gonna go for?
Joke?
That's not a joke, bro. That's not a joke, my dude.
You are removing these people's ability to reproduce. And if they're at a young age and they haven't had the ability, like for instance, Jazz Jennings can never have kids. And when I say this person will never have this ability, you go, how weird is that?
It's weird for you to fixate on a stranger's genital pleasure. That's strange. That's so bizarre.
Well,
It's not. No. Stop. Again, deflecting. It has nothing to do about fixating on one particular person's sexual pleasure. It's the simple fact that their body isn't functioning in the way that it's supposed to function. And this is a result of trans affirming care. But he's deflecting. I don't want to talk about this. This is weird. This is gross.
Public about it.
But see, you're not making an argument right now.
Right.
I'm not. I'm saying it's weird.
You're
It's not an
appealing
argument.
to. He's appealing to emotion. He's appealing to emotion instead of sticking to the facts.
So you're trying to make an appeal to emotion and an appeal to
No,
shame.
I'm just giving you my genuine thought when you say something like that. Like,
Well, that was a really fucking pathetic attempt at trying
why
to make
should
an
we
argument.
talk about that? Why should we discuss whether or not she has genital feeling? That's not important. It's not. It's none of my business.
You're ready to pull out data and research and debunk every single claim that people on the show are making, and that's your business then. But when we're talking about these sexual functions and feeling pleasure being intimate with someone, and how a lot of people who get these procedures done don't feel that, now you don't want to talk about it.
So let's focus then on the sterilizing of the individual. Are you okay with that? Like, you are removing teenagers' ability to have children.
I'm not doing anything. I'm not a doctor, Tim.
You
I don't have the
support
ability
it,
to do this.
right?
I support people having access to health care. Of course.
You support people having access to health care, even though you are supporting an ideology that is leading to people having complications with health. But those complications are none of your business if it doesn't align with the narrative that you've already subscribed to. James chapter 1, verse 8 reads, "He is a double-minded man, unstable in all his ways." And if you listen to this guy's arguments, he is very much unstable in his arguments. It's like, yeah, I don't agree with it, but I think they should do it. Yeah, it's my business here, but it's not my business here. It's like this back and forth. There's no intellectual consistency. It's sort of just like up in the air, and it will change at any moment. It's just so unstable. It's not consistent. And this is the result of not having a moral authority above human civilization or above your own opinion.
Let's try again. You seem scared of this. Do you believe that parents and doctors should have the ability to remove the ability of a child for future reproduction?
They should have the ability to give them access to health care. Of course they should.
So why do you keep saying like that?
You're implying that every single gender affirming care results in sterilization. That is not true at all.
I said the removal
There's
of
also
the...
people who are trans that never get bottom surgery.
You seem very scared of this. It's scaring you.
How am I afraid to?
Because you keep deflecting when I ask you.
He seems very scared of this. I'm sorry, guys. Well, I mean, I'm not sorry because this... I love this conversation, but I want to pause right here. And Tim is calling this guy out because it seems that his guest is very scared of this conversation. John chapter 3, verse 20 through 21, it reads this: everyone who does evil hates the light and will not come into the light for fear that their deeds will be exposed. This guy right here, Tim, he doesn't know God. From based on what I've seen, but he is pursuing truth, and I can tell. So let's keep praying for Tim. But this other guy keeps deflecting, doesn't want to talk about it. Now it's none of my business. Why? We have to get this idea out of our head that we're not allowed to change our mind, that we're not allowed to reconsider our beliefs out of fear that we're going to be exposed as a liar or a bad person. Like, we have to just get over that and accept the fact that we don't know everything.
I can kind of see your argument, because if a kid was a straight kid, just a kid, and they were like a 12-year-old girl, and she was like, I don't want to have babies when I'm older. And the mom was like, okay, then we'll sterilize you right now. And they went and had the kid had a hysterectomy. I think that's illegal. I don't know, but I would imagine society needs to protect little kids from crazy parents that are like, just because a 12-year-old says they don't have babies later in life. So the fact that it is sterilizing as a byproduct, I think should be taken into account with the whole procedure.
I think that's still something that comes down to the individual and what they choose to do. And if someone is like, I want to have gender affirming care, knowing the risks, then why is that my business? It's the same.
Bro! This guy he's contradicting himself. It's not my business to talk about the sexual health as it pertains to someone that has these procedures done. Then he's also saying, as long as they understand the risks. That's the point, my dude, is that a lot of people don't understand the risks because they're listening to individuals like you that seem to think that this is a walk in the park. That's the exact argument is oh my goodness.
If someone had an appendix inflamed and they had to have their appendix out, there are potential complications that come from that, but I'm not going to prevent them from having healthcare and saying that you can't have a right to get your appendix out, because every major medical association in the United States agrees that that is the best way to treat appendicitis. And in this case, when we're talking about trans people, every single medical association in the United States agrees on gender affirming care.
Then you know what they should
every
do?
single one.
Did it ever occur to you, sir, that these people are lying? Did it ever cross your mind that even though they claim to agree with gender affirming care, did it ever occur to you that they're lying? Did it occur to you that perhaps they're afraid? They don't want to lose their license. They don't want to be called a transphobe or a bigot. Did it ever occur to you that maybe these people are just the blind following the blind because everyone else seems to be affirming it? It always baffles me that these people think that if they just simply say, oh, so-and-so agrees with it, who cares? So-and-so is a coward. So-and-so is lying.
If you take an adult human, female or male, and remove their genitals by force, they will be very, very upset, extremely upset. In fact, it's a form of torture in a lot of countries. It's meant to terrify. If you took away their ability to feel sexual satisfaction, it's a form of torture. In fact, female circumcision is horrifying to the world. And it actually was huge controversies up in Dearborn, Michigan, because what it would do is it would result in women who are as adults could not feel anything and they were effectively used as like objects for their husbands. Mm-hmm. So in making an academic argument, we would say Jazz Jennings does not understand, and that's fine if Jazz is happy, that's great. The argument into the greater is Jazz will never have kids. Fact statement. I think it's wrong to take away that from someone who doesn't understand what it is.
What if they don't want kids?
They will decide.
Did you listen to anything that he just said? Kids are literally picking their boogers, okay? They're picking their boogers. They're flicking it on their classmates. They think they're Superman one day. They think they're, it's like they're playing pretend. And they're also seeking acceptance from their peers because we see this crap paraded around as something that's to be celebrated. I mean, we have a whole year of people celebrating Pride and LGBTQIA plus minus 224. So what child wouldn't see that celebration and not think, I want that too?
It's not penile inversion vaginoplasty. I don't know what it's called because Jazz didn't have a penis. What's the purpose of making the hole, the space? What's the purpose of that?
The operation is because it gives them, it affirms their gender through the process of having a similar genitalia to a cis woman.
So what's the purpose of it?
I just explained that.
So the purpose of it is just feeling, just emotion.
No, the purpose of it is part of affirming who they are through a surgery that makes them look and feel more like a version of a woman that they want to be. You don't have to. There's not a template. That's not the only version a woman can be. There's other versions of how a woman can be and look, but that's the version that she wanted.
So
it's like a car. You can just go to the car lot and just pick one out, get some aftermarket stuff, get all the bells and whistles. What type of upgrades do you want?
But Tim, if someone wants to and it makes them feel better and improves their quality of life, then why do we have to get in the way of that?
Well,
Happiness is a vapor. It comes and it goes. You can't sustain it. It's just here one moment and it's gone the next. Which is why there are a lot of people who have detransitioned. A lot of people that subscribe to this gender affirmation, this gender transing care, whatever you want to call it. A lot of people have backtracked and said, nope, I want to undo this process. I made a mistake. Why is that? I can't speak for them, but if the initial motivation was to chase happiness, then I can only assume that perhaps that happiness dissipated after a while. It's just gone. But this guy seems to think as long as it makes you happy, do it. That is the worst advice you could ever give to someone. Because I can think of a lot of situations where people have done things that made them happy, but it hurt them in the long run.
Right, so my position is for adults, I agree. And I had the argument with Tom Fitton. He said it should be banned outright. I disagree.
But overwhelmingly, when you look at the data...
Hold on. So Tim says that he doesn't agree with transing the kids, but he does think that gender transition should be something that's available to adults, which doesn't make much sense to me, but I'm going to try to unpack this. If we're going based off of the narrative that trans activists give us, the narrative of this whole trans ideology, the narrative is this: trans affirming care is life-saving. So if that's what we're saying, and we're claiming that without access to this health care, a lot of people are going to die, then you're now making a human right argument. So why wouldn't human rights, per this logic, be given to kids? If you make something like this true for adults, then logically, you have to apply it to children. There is no compromise when it comes to evil. As I said, I wasn't going to react to the entire thing. There's probably a lot more in there that I could comment on, but I'll just leave it here. We have to understand that the battle that we're facing right now isn't a battle of left versus right. It's a battle of good versus evil. We're not battling against flesh and blood, okay? And a lot of people fail to recognize that. So my question to you guys, since a lot of people seem to be very irritated at the fact that I bring up God and I talk about objective morality and things of that nature, I want to know, how do you intend on resolving all of the depravity we see in the world? Like, if we're dealing with someone who has been so demoralized to the point that facts and truth doesn't matter anymore, how do you intend on fixing that? A culture war? I mean, 2 years ago, I used to think that, yeah, we can fix all of this mess with a culture war. Wishful thinking. You can't fix it with a culture war. You can't fix it with legislation. You can't fix it with the red pill. We're dealing with something that is much bigger than politics. We're dealing with people who call evil good and good evil. So how do you fix that? But that's going to be it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, give it a like and hit that subscribe button. And don't forget to find the uncensored version of this video on Locals and Rumble, because YouTube doesn't want you to see what trans affirming care actually looks like. My name is Gothix, and I'll see you next time. Bye.